What is up guys, welcome back to the channel and of course the penultimate episode of Loki. I've enjoyed this series so far, I'm sure you all have. So this episode, it is named Journey into Mystery, which is a little nod to the comic book Journey into Mystery issue 85, where Thor and Loki are first debuted, so that is a fun little nod. There are a lot of Easter eggs in this episode, to be honest. It is kind of like a Marvel Easter egg playground. I'm sure you probably spotted a lot of them, but in case you didn't, I will be covering some of my favourite Easter eggs at the end of this video, so stick around for that. So overall, I thought this was a really good episode, potentially even a contender for my favourite episode of the series so far. Of course, last week I said that was my favourite episode, episode 4. Potentially this is a contender, I'm unsure. It's kind of on par. We met new characters in this, we got new settings, of course, and we just learnt a whole lot of new stuff. Of course, tons of Easter eggs, and that is always good fun. One of the big things we learned is that Ramona, I forgot her name, Renslayer, she also doesn't know who the TVA kind of was started by. So we see her kind of touch on that in this episode a little bit in some discussions with Sylvie. So it'd be interesting to see what she does, but it looks like she is going to try and find out who is behind the TVA and essentially uphold the TVA and stop Sylvie from getting to them. So that'd be an interesting kind of thing to see. But really, this episode is kind of teased for what might come. So of course, we got a whole new bunch of characters in this episode. If you saw the post-credit scene or my last video, at the end, we got a little glimpse of some variant Lokis. Now, in this, it is confirmed who they are. I mean, notably, we see an older version of Loki in the classic kind of comic book kind of get-up, played by Richard E. Grant. So that looks like it's based on the Jack Kirby comic book Loki. We also see Kid Loki. We see Boastful Loki, who has a hammer. And we also see Alligator Loki, which I'm sure for a lot of you stole the show in this episode. Now, I did think there were some great moments in this episode. We get a moment where we have Richard E. Grant and Owen Wilson sat around a fire discussing if Alligator Loki is actually a variant of Loki. I mean, if that's what this, if that's not what this series is made for, I have no idea what it's made for. One of the fun things I thought about this episode is that we get to see a lot of Lokis, and with that, we see that classic character trait of Lokis never being kind of trustworthy. We see Boastful Loki kind of sell out the group to President Loki, who we saw in the trailers, and the whole Vote Loki trailer kind of thing. So Boastful Loki sells out and kind of backstabs the group, sells them out to the President. President Loki then backstabs Boastful Loki, and then the Marauders that are with President Loki then backstab him, and then it breaks out into this massive fight, and we get to see some cool powers. But I thought it was really funny and interesting to see all the kind of classic Loki kind of lack of trust and backstabbing kind of traits that we're used to. And I thought it was quite funny seeing it across all these variants. We do actually see a massive shift with the kind of characteristics of Loki, or at least the Loki we know, the Tom Hiddleston Loki. He has a moment with Sylvie where he essentially says he's changed. He is almost becoming a bit more of a kind of noble and kind of trustworthy character. He's very much, like in this episode, clearly a lot different now, and kind of matured in a way and evolved from the other Lokis. So that's a really cool kind of character arc and development that we've seen through the films and everything. Annoyingly for me, this episode didn't answer my questions of like who's behind the curtain, that whole kind of thing, which is very Wizard of Oz at the moment. Even the reveal at the end where it kind of opens up, like the clouds open up in a life and they kind of are about to go through to that kind of castle citadel thing. It is all very like Wizard of Oz, you know, the whole TVA, who's behind it. They had the timekeepers. Oh, that's a big ruse, it's not the timekeepers. So it's like, who's behind that, pulling the strings? So that's quite interesting. I still have my money on Kang the Conqueror. I've said this throughout the whole series, and I know a lot of people stand by that. There is a lot of reasons why I stand by that as well, which I'll touch on in the Easter eggs as well. Either that or I think it might be a Loki variant, but I do hope it's Kang. I don't want it to be disappointing. I'm sure it won't be. I just know with WandaVision, I got my hopes up that maybe the Mephisto would pop up, and I know a lot of people as well thought Mephisto might be in there. But of course, a little bit let down by that one, but I still love WandaVision. But I don't know if I'm just holding on to this Kang thing and it's going to be something a lot smaller. Knowing that he's going to be in the next Ant-Man, it's just one of those things of maybe they'll introduce him here. We can only hope. So in conclusion, obviously as you can imagine, this has left me itching to watch the finale, to get all my questions answered, or hopefully all my questions answered, and see what the hell's going on. Who the hell is behind the freaking TVA? Is it Kang the Conqueror? Please be Kang. Or someone else, Doctor Doom. If Doctor Doom pops up in this, I will lose my freaking mind. But yeah, I thought this was a very good episode, very successful. As I say, it had a good pace to it. There were some really cool moments, great character development, lots of Easter eggs that made me very happy as a Marvel fan. Some not Marvel related, but still, you know, fun little Easter eggs, which, as I say, if you stay after this little bit, I'm going to touch on some of those Easter eggs. But yes, really good episode. There were some cool epic moments as well. We got the moment with the classic old Loki where he is distracting Elias by constructing like a massive hologram Asgard, and I thought that was a really cool moment and like a sick epic way to go out. Hopefully he comes back in future kind of endeavours, but I don't know, but that was a really cool moment. So now that the review is out of the way, I just wanted to touch on a few Easter eggs that you may or may not have seen throughout this episode. As I say, it's kind of a blink and you'll miss it. You could pretty much just freeze frame every shot of this film and you'll probably see some Easter eggs somewhere. All you'd have to do is freaking do an enhanced zoom and you'll probably find something that even I didn't spot. I'm not going to touch on every single Easter egg, but just some of the fun, kind of main notable ones that I enjoyed. So the first fun Easter egg that we saw was a shot of the Avengers Tower, which instead of saying Avengers or Stark on the side, it said Kang. Now, if you're not familiar, Kang Enterprises is owned by a guy called Nathaniel Richards, who is also known as Kang the Conqueror. Now, I don't know if that's just the writers of this teasing me, but surely they're just trying to tease a Kang the Conqueror being in this. It's either that or it's just a mad coincidence, or they're just really trying to rile us up. Another little tease that could kind of link in with this whole Kang theory is Elias. Now, obviously, we see a lot of Elias in this episode, and it's very much based around Elias. But having me clinging on to the Kang theory, Kang has a lot of deep cut links with Kang in the comic books. Again, this could just be a coincidence, but again, I'm holding on to everything there. The next little Easter egg, I think I'm going to say this right, is the Levantine sword, which we see Kid Loki give to our kind of normal, I say normal Loki, what is he, like mainline Loki? I don't know. We see him give that to Loki, which in the comics it is Loki's ancestral blade. Of course it lights on fire, we get to see a little bit of that in here, but I thought that was a fun little addition to the episode. Another little Easter egg that was a good fun one that you would have missed if you blinked, but we get to see a Thanos copter, which is one of the more silly Easter eggs in my eyes. I mean, sillier things have happened, but there is, of course, a time where Thanos had a helicopter, which was shown in Spidey Super Stories issue 39. And yeah, as simple as Thanos has a helicopter. We also get a quick glimpse at the Yellow Jacket helmet, of course, Yellow Jacket being the villain from Ant-Man 1. Now we have a non-Marvel related Easter egg, which is the USS Eldridge, which is a US Navy ship which was used to test cloaking technology to completely vanish from human view and radar, which is a fun little addition to this. Again, it has no real link to Marvel at all. It's kind of just a real life thing which supposedly, you know, these tests happens, but there's no one actually knows what happens with this experiment. But yeah, that's a fun little nod before it gets, of course, destroyed by Elias. I mean, destroyed, eaten, whatever, like they absolutely get destroyed. Now, a more obvious Easter egg that I'm sure you would have noticed is Mjolnir is kind of sitting in the dirt as they pan down into the bunker. It's almost kind of waiting there as if one of these Lokis are eventually going to find it and be worthy. But a more notable kind of thing you might have missed, literally a shot after Mjolnir pops on, is Frog, which I find a really fun one. It's the Frog, it's spelled T-H-R-O-G, Frog. Which is another fun little Easter egg. Essentially, we see that a frog version of Thor, which obviously is popular in the comics, kind of banging on a jar to try and get out of the jar. Almost like that scene from Avengers 1 where Thor's like in that little capsule being ejected from the helicarrier. So we see that, that's quite cool. And on the jar itself, it's got a label T365, which of course is a nod to the issue where he gets debuted, which is for issue 365. So probably my favourite Easter egg in this entire kind of episode, I guess, was we get a little shot of the statue, or at least the heads of a statue of the Living Tribunal. Now, if you're not familiar with the Living Tribunal, essentially, the Living Tribunal is one of the most kind of powerful characters in the entire Marvel universe. Basically, it's a cosmic entity. It's got like a three-sided head, which you'll see from the episode, and it's in charge of overseeing and judging every reality in the multiverse, which is kind of what the TVA are trying to do, I guess. I can imagine this is probably just like a deep cut, but maybe it will tie in kind of further down the line with this whole multiverse thing that's going on. Maybe he's even behind. Maybe the Living Tribunal is behind all this. I don't really know. They have been hinted at before in the past. If you missed it, it was in Doctor Strange, where Mordo has the staff of the Living Tribunal in a fight against Doctor Strange. Another obvious one that popped up was, of course, a helicarrier and the Dark Aether. I never had to pronounce Aether, which is Ronan's ship from Guardians of the Galaxy. So we see that pop in. Obviously, it's in Guardians of the Galaxy and in Captain Marvel. I don't know where else it shows up, but yeah, we get to see those ships, and that is pretty much it. Now, of course, there is a lot more Easter eggs that I could touch on with this, but they go really into detail, and I don't really want to do that in this video. It's not something I kind of want to make this video. I wanted it to be a review, but I did see a lot of Easter eggs in this that I wanted to talk about. Maybe in the future, if you do enjoy this, I will talk about Easter eggs more. I find them really interesting, reading into them, theories, stuff like that. So, you know, if you want me to discuss all those things more, just let me know, and I'm happy to do that. But yes, I've really enjoyed this episode. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next week. I really hope Kang's going to be in this, but I don't know if I'm just holding on to this expectation. I'm going to be disappointed if it's not Kang. Like I say, Mephisto, I was hoping it would be him. In Wanda, it wasn't. I wouldn't say I was disappointed because it was Agatha all along. But maybe they'll do a whole thing with this where it's a variant of Loki, and they'll do a whole it was Loki all along kind of thing. But I'm not sure. I'm going to wait till Wednesday. I'm excited. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, leave a like, subscribe below. I love you guys. Peace out.
Bye, have a great time.